Welcome everybody to the May Inventors Gathering. We have these Inventors Gatherings every third Thursday of the month. This is the Public Invention Inventors Gathering. Public Invention is a US 501c3 public charity which tries to invent in the public for the public. Today, I'm going to be talking about using GitHub to manage volunteer teams. Forming volunteer teams is one of the main things that Public Invention does. So GitHub is a lot of different things. It's a version management system, but and we can call it a version management system because it's built upon the free tool Git, which is fundamentally a version management system. But it's also a free of charge website publication system. It has some limits, but it allows you to publish a website in a lot of different forms. It also allows you to host live calculators, which I've spoken about before. Um, if the application that you're building with the calculator has no persistence and can be browser based. It's also a bug management system and a task prioritizer. It's also a Kanban project management board. Project management boards are used with Scrum and Agile and a variety of other software development methodologies. Version management is absolutely required for shared computer programs, but it's also valuable for lawyers and any team that manages documents. And that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about today. So what is version management? I'm not going to talk about everything that could be said about this. I'm just going to introduce the idea, but the basic idea is that access is controlled to your team members. That is, the people that you give the ability to either read or write the documents, and you're versioning a set of documents, and usually that's computer code, but sometimes it's something else, just written text documents, for example, or cartoons, or a set of drawings, or a set of engineering drawings. Can really be anything you want. Now, at Public Invention, almost all of our repositories, which is the holder for the documents, are readable by the entire world. But of course, almost every project, you only allow a few people to write to the project. So when you think about open source software development, it's open to everybody to read the software, but it's not open to everybody to write to the software or to change the software. Now, they may have the right to make a copy of the software and begin changing their own copy, but you wouldn't want someone to change the copy that you're working on. Every document gets a version number, and every time it changes, you can you update the version number. Now, in Git, that's not always an explicit number, but it's part of the Git system. And you can roll back to any point in time using a version control system, a version management system, which is beautiful because you can look back in time, but you can also repair a problem. So if you realize that a problem was introduced in the past, you can roll back to before the problem was introduced, do something about it, and then you can usually roll forward, although not always. You can create branches, which are different versions that different people work on, which may then come back together, or sometimes they don't come back together. And hopefully you should do that sparingly, but GitHub makes it really easy to do it. Now, one of the magical things that's a big improvement that came from the Git system, but it also existed in other version management systems, is that conflicts are resolved almost automatically. So let's say my friend Z and I are working on a science fiction story, and I'm working at the beginning and he's working at the end. That doesn't create a conflict because we're not working in the same space. Git would automatically merge our work together. There wouldn't be any problem doing that. Now, if we were working in the same paragraph, there could be a conflict where the Git system would not automatically know if he should take Z's version or my version. And that can happen. The Git tools allow you to then make a choice as to which version should be made, and they make it very easy. They make it easy to rewind mistakes and easy to tag groups of documents at the same time. So one of the beauties of this is that GitHub lets you publish any kind of document. So it's really a document repository, but you can build a simple website using a language called Markdown, which is very, very simple. It's not as hard as your average computer programming language. And it gets the job done, especially if your audience is there for the content, not the glitz. So I'd like to now show you a repo that I'm kind of proud of. This is a repo that was created by someone who took a book that I wrote and put it all on GitHub. So back in 2020, I wrote a book called How to Be a Programmer. And this person, Brady, whom I don't know, although I later came to know him a little bit, simply put my entire book at GitHub. And I had a section on how to use source code control or version management, which is the same thing. And I wrote all these chapters and so forth. And so this doesn't necessarily look like a fancy website, but it still allows you to publish a lot of really valuable information. In fact, this has an entire book, obviously. So in that sense, GitHub is extremely powerful. Now, you can also create what I call live calculators. And this is one that I wrote. This, believe it or not, is hosted at GitHub for $0. I don't pay anything for this. And since this rather powerful graphical application here, where I'm manipulating these 3D images in space interactively, is implemented as a pure calculator. That is, there's no persistence in a database that needs to be created. This can be hosted completely at GitHub, completely free of charge. Okay, and this has this powerful graphics. Why? Because those graphics can run in the browser using OpenGL in this case, and you can present all of this kind of information here. So I can use this to set various geometric objects, which I more or less discovered and gave a name to. So this is really a surprisingly powerful mechanism to do without paying a penny for this. And anyone in the world can go to this and use it. So that's another example of the power of GitHub. Because it combines version management with a website, it makes it very easy to publish some kinds of information completely for free. Okay. It also combines what is called bug tracking and task management. Now, in GitHub, these are called issues. Then they can be bugs, like software bugs, but they can also just be things that you have to do, like getting the groceries or mowing the lawn. And they can be assigned to a different person on your team. I'll show you that in a minute. Generally, you think of a bug as being open until it's been fixed. And then when it's fixed, you close it. And GitHub allows you to take care of that. Now, in normal usage, anyone can create an issue at any repository, because when you write computer code, you want people to be able to tell you if there's a problem with your software. So anyone can create an issue, but that doesn't mean that they can change your code. Only you can change your code in most circumstances. And issues can be powerfully searched, labeled, and grouped together into milestones. So I want to show you one repository that we're working on. Like everything that Public Invention does, this repository is free Libre open source software. It's published under the Affero GNU public license. And like most things, it has some nice pictures. So it's kind of like a little website. at the top here, you see the documents which are supported here. Some of these you can click on and see them directly. And so you can host a wide variety of documents. Okay, the most important of which, though, are the code, right? So for example, this is a piece of computer code. And more importantly, this is a relatively large piece of TypeScript code. Okay. Now, I see here that the team member named Daniil most recently made a change. If I click this button, blame, it says to the left who most recently changed each line. So here I'm seeing that this was done by Ben Coombs. I recognize his little icon. Harry Pearson did some of these. Let's see. Here's one done by, I don't know who did that actually. But you can see who did these things, and you can wind this back in time if you need to. And that is extremely valuable for complicated documents like computer software or mathematical papers. Okay. Now, I said that GitHub is also a bug tracking and issue management system. Here is the set of issues at this website. This system is one that's very close to my heart. It's the Global Distributed Tracking Project. It's free Libre software to produce QR codes to securely track global health supplies or emergency management supplies. And it's live. You can do a demo. You can see a demo of it. You can use it. You can use it right now. We're going to launch it with a nice video that we paid for fairly soon. Now, if you look at this, you can see we have 56 issues open and we closed 217. That's a sign of all the work that we've been doing in the last year on this project. Now, you might think 56 issues is a lot of issues to have open, but it's not uncommon for issues to be relatively low priority. So it's not as if we have 56 severe bugs. We have 56 things that we would like to do or need to be fixed. In fact, many of these are what you would call feature requests. So they represent not a bug in the system per se, but something which has not yet been implemented. Now, GitHub allows, what Public Invention mostly does is we mostly build teams of volunteers that work together to try to make the world a better place in some way. And therefore, you normally think of having a team which is allowed to add things to the repository or change this. And these are the relatively small number of people, about 20 people, who have been given write permission on this repo and who can be assigned a bug. Now, I can search, for example, for all the bugs that are assigned to Allison right now. These are the 2 bugs that are assigned to her. And in that way, I can know what each person is working on. That's extremely powerful. Another powerful concept is that you can create milestones. And milestones are a way of organizing your work into I guess we're not using it very much. Organizing a group of bugs that have to be made to achieve some specific goal, like a launch, for example. So you could use this system essentially as task management across a team that, in our case, consists of 20 people. Not all of them are active right now. We have about 10 active members of the team. But you can also organize your work in other ways. For example, we can add labels, and you can create your own labels here. Some of these issues are high priority, or we deem them to be security issues, or some kind of other issue. So if you're working together as a team remotely, where you're not coming into the office together, since everyone sees the same thing here, it's creating what's sometimes called a big visible chart. That is, it's a big thing which visually everybody can see it in a shared space. So it really creates a sense of understanding on the team about the status of everybody's work. Okay. And finally, you can create a so-called project planning board. Okay. Now, this is sometimes called a storyboard or a Kanban board. There are different names for it, but this is very much a visual map. It moves from the left and right. I'm scrolling right now with my mouse, and you can move from up to down. Okay. The normal way of doing this, and you can create your own columns as you wish. We created our own columns here, is that as an issue or a user story is worked on, it progresses from left to right across this board. And a card can simply be picked up like this and dragged. Oops. Why can't I pick one up? Oh, I'm not logged in here. So that's a good example. I think any of you right now can go to see this, but because I'm not logged in right now, I'm not allowed to modify this, because of course you wouldn't want the whole world to be able to modify your project board, or that would create room for vandalism. Unfortunately, some people are naughty in that way. But as a story changes, it moves from no status to typically being in what's called the backlog of project issues that you want to work on, to being prioritized. And then when developers start working on it, they move it to in progress. When it's done, it's considered ready for quality assurance or QA. And then finally, it's done. So we've actually got 199 issues in the done state on this project board. And then, of course, some projects you think they're valuable, but they're not, or you're going to reassess them later. So if you click on one of these, you see that it's just an issue. They don't have to be issues, but they usually are. Actually, that's a pull request. I want to do that. This is an example. It has a lot of information here. I can see that Daniil completed this 3 days ago. If I have to, for some reason, I can go back and examine this issue. This is, for example, is a closed issue. So we can always talk more about this, but we can ask the question, why do volunteer teams need this? Well, progress is intrinsically shared, and therefore you need a visual tool that allows the whole team to see the progress that everybody is making. Versioning allows mistakes to be corrected, and computer programming, there's a lot of mistakes, and the mistakes are very severe. So it's almost impossible in the modern world to write, for more than one person working on a piece of code, to successfully do it without version control of some kind. If you're writing your own program by yourself and no one else works on it, you don't absolutely need version control. But even then, it's very useful to use version control just for your own sake, to remember things that you've done in the past, or in case you make some mistake. It's very common in computer programming for something to have been working last week, and then you make some change. Your change is effective, it does something, but it breaks something somewhere else, and you'd like to go back in time to see how it worked, to make sure, to try to troubleshoot and understand why the change that you made mistakenly broke some other feature. Now, you can, of course, make your own website and get your own domain name, but that costs money and it takes time. And a lot of times you don't need to publish more than just basic information. So GitHub is completely reasonable for the purpose of publishing basic information about something. And then finally, every project has bugs, even if you're writing something yourself, and therefore everyone needs a bug management system, because as a project becomes complicated enough, it's too hard to keep all of the bugs in your head, especially if you're sharing that information across other people. So I have some tips for doing this with volunteer teams. GitHub uses the language of assignments. It says an issue is assigned to someone. That should not be thought of as a punishment. What it really means is you're responsible for it. If it's assigned to you, you are responsible for it. It does not mean that you have to do it, but it means you have to take some action on it, even if that action is just assigning it to somebody else. Most of the people who are on your team, you're going to want to give them right access, because almost everyone you want to empower to, for example, fix a spelling mistake in the README, even if they are not computer programmers who are going to write computer code and understand how to do that. Now, I didn't put this in the text here. What if someone doesn't have a GitHub username? What if they've never used GitHub? I would be very tempted to say they have to. They have to get one. If someone is volunteering for your team and they're unwilling to learn the very simple basics of using GitHub, they're probably not going to be a very good volunteer on your team. And you should really consider if it's reasonable to carry forward with such a volunteer. Using project boards is the way modern software is developed, and it's done in a lot of different enterprises, but there are a lot of different ways of doing it. You can customize it to fit the way that makes sense for your team to work. There's no one right way of doing that. I've had the pleasure of working with Kent Beck several times, who is one of the creators of the Agile Manifesto and some very important books about Agile programming, and all of the rules about Agile exist to serve the team. The team doesn't exist to serve the Agile process. The Agile process exists for the team to help it develop software. And then finally, in most situations, you're going to want what are called check-in policies or committing policies or pull request policies that make sense for your team. For example, GitHub makes it very easy to enforce a policy that whenever someone makes a change, it has to be reviewed by another person. Now, that's not a rule of software development. It's just a policy, which may be a good policy for a team that you're working on. As the code becomes more important and more complex and more depends on it not having bugs in it, that becomes a more reasonable policy. Okay, that's the end of my talk. This has been shorter than some of my other talks, and I'm happy to take questions.
I have a question. Hey, Rob, how you doing?
Good, I'm looking forward to it.
Just a quick question, actually. Is GitHub basically or mostly for software development, or is it for everything else? How could I benefit from GitHub myself, and I'm not a programmer?
It's 95% for software development, okay? But a lot of the techniques that are now used by software developments were used by manufacturers first. Like the project board was originally done by manufacturers. And so, for example, let's say you're in what might be called a job shop. Okay, so maybe you're not manufacturing something, but you've got jobs, right? You have to repair this car, you have to dig that ditch, you have to do all these things. You could create those as issues and then use the issue management to keep track of the things that have to be done. and to prioritize them. Now, one way that we do this with Victoria Jacqua, who's not on this call for GDT, is she is not a computer programmer, but she's learned how to use GitHub very effectively. And she prioritizes things on the project board. And that's as simple as raising them to the top, and things that are less important, you move to the bottom. So let's say you have a team of 5 workers, but you have 20 jobs. They can't all work on 20 jobs at the same time, so management, and I did this for 20 years, is basically saying, Alice, this is the highest priority. Bob, this is the highest priority. Charlie, this is your highest priority, and making those assignments. And GitHub makes that very easy to do.
I see.
Miriam, do you want to ask you a question? Oh,
I posted on the chat.
yeah. So Miriam, it's not in the chat. It's actually DM'd to me, but I'll read it out loud. For someone brand new to GitHub, what's the very first step you would recommend to take? A good question. Just go to GitHub and get a GitHub username. It's completely free. Okay. You'll give it your email, but you don't have to pay anything. You don't even have to register a credit card. Right. Then you have to create a repo. So a repo stands for repository. Let me share my screen and show you this. Blah, 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 blah. So Public Invention is an organization which has about 80 repos, believe it or not. Each of these things is a repository which was created by me or someone on the Public Invention team. Okay, but let me just do it right now as a demonstration. Okay, so I'm not going to do it as Public Invention. I'm going to do it as Robert L. Reed. So here is a list of some repositories that I visit often. I'm going to create a new repository. Okay, I'm gonna call it Z's Auto Shop, and I'm gonna say this is to manage jobs. Now, if it's private so that no one else can see it, you have to pay for that. But if it's public, you don't have to pay for it, and it's free. So I'm going to add a README. I'm not going to choose a license because this is going to be literally a job shop management thing. And so here I have this, and it's public. So I'm going to put this in the chat, this URL, and I'm going to ask my friend Z to go to this. He might have to create a username. Maybe Lawrence, could you click on this and create an issue, please? And I'm going to do it on my screen too. So here I'm at the set of issues. I just click the button that says new issue, and I'm going to say Bob needs to paint the bumper. Okay, and if I wanted to, if I can do this without doing anything crazy, I can just drop an image on here, and then I create it. Okay, that's just a photo of a receipt, but it's actually I could just as easily put a photo of a car there, for example. Okay. Lawrence, have you created an issue? Let's see. So anyway, having created an issue, I can edit it and I could add a label to it. So I could say help wanted, right? Or I could say question. And then when I look at my list of issues, I see those colorful things done here. So this is very nice. Joe created change the oil, and Lawrence created Mazda here. Okay. So who do I assign this to? Well, I could assign this one to Lawrence. Let me just show you sort of the final feature here. Okay. So I can go to projects and create a new project. And I can, there are different, I didn't realize this, there are different ones, but I would use, I'll use Kanban, for example. Okay. I probably shouldn't call this, that. And there's a way to associate this with that repo. Okay, but you can also add an item here. So I can just say, paint a red car. Let's see, I think, how does that work? Okay, that's good. It did work there. Okay. Okay, so by doing that, I created an issue here. Okay, now I have the ability to say, you know what, painting that red car is not that important. I'm going to put it in the backlog. Or when Alice begins painting it, she can move it to in progress. Okay, now when someone shows up, when the boss shows up, you know, the boss knows that it's in progress because the developer or the worker has moved it in status. When the work is done and needs to be reviewed, maybe the boss inspects it, the worker moves it to in review, and then the boss says, yeah, it was a good job, it's done, we're done with that, bill the people, right? Okay, are there any further questions?
I would just make a comment that while making a project may be one workflow you would do first, another would be to contribute to a project that already exists. For instance, if you're contributing to something with public invention, you would not necessarily start by making a project. You're probably going to start by contributing to working on issues, or pushing a commit, or sending a pull request, etc.
Right, right. That's a good point.
Another thing that you often will do is, if you're about to start on a project, you'll start by forking an existing project so you have a copy of that repo, and then you can make your own local changes, and then you can propose that other people would take advantage of your changes by sending a pull request from your copy to theirs.
That's right. That's a very important topic. That's kind of advanced for computer programmers, right? But you can do that.
I
So
find it as foundational, because you need a place to put your work, but it's not necessarily what the maintainer of the real project wants. So there's got to be an intermediate where you publish your work and then get someone to decide if it's acceptable.
right. Let me give a little bit of an example of that. Okay, so I'm just going to search for a word, catalog. Actually, that I'm going to go up here to the dashboard, and let's see. I'm going to search for a repo, and I'll just search for the word catalog. Okay, so here I found a repo made by Diego Catalano. I have no idea what this person is doing. I don't know what they're trying to do. This is an explanation of what they're trying to do.
You're
They
not
don't.
sharing in case you were meaning to.
Oh, that will probably make it rather confusing. Okay, I'm sorry, you missed out. So here is a repo that I don't own. This is just a public repo made by a guy from Brazil named Diego Catalano. Okay, this is an open source thing. It looks like 295 people have essentially liked it by putting a star on it. So that's good. Someone's done this. Whatever he's doing, you know, he does not know who I am. Okay. And I am not on his team. So if I came in here, I could see the code, but I'm not allowed to modify it. I hope not. Okay. So when I hit the pencil, it says I have to do what Joe just said, which is to fork the repository, which means to make a copy of it, the way a tree branch forks out, so to speak. So I
Fork
can
in
make,
the road, go a different direction.
yeah. So if I fork this repository, okay, now this change is actually, I don't believe it's made on his code. It's actually made in a repo that I have created called Robert L. Reed Catalano Framework. It looks like a complete copy of his work. And it is, except it knows that it was copied from that person's thing. So if I choose to, I could modify this and I could say, this is good, but I don't like the word framework. I'm going to change it to platform. And then I'm going to submit it back to Mr. Catalano. And I'm going to say, you fool, why are you calling it a framework? It's a platform. And he could choose to accept my change or he could reject it. Okay, that has very little to do with what Z was just talking about, but that's an important way to use GitHub.
It's also interesting you had called out the stars. If you look at the other sort of stats of the repo, you can get a sense of the activity and how many people are making their own changes to it. So yours is empty, but if you go back to his.
Right. You see everybody, I have 0 stars and 0 people watching it. But if you go back to his, looks like this is a sort of a dead repo. No one has modified it in 5 years. But at one time it was, or maybe still, it's popular because 295 people have just clicked the little button, which is like a like button, and put a star on it.
Right, and you have 39 people that are watching it, meaning they'll get notification when there are changes. And there are 99 people now that Robert has forked it that have their own copy directly from this one.
And they probably made those copies because they wanted to submit some sort of improvement to Mr. Catalano.
I mean, there are other reasons to make a copy. Also, for example, if you don't want the repo to change randomly when you look at it next, if you make a copy, you can fix in time the last time you used it. And so you're working from the changes that you were using last. If you're pulling from the most recent copy, you have to kind of dig back if for whatever reason the version that you remember working doesn't work, or if the document that you're editing wasn't as you remember it to. So you can make a copy for your own purposes.
Yeah, you can. Oftentimes, if it's a public project, you'll refer to a tag, which is a way for the maintainers of that project to indicate a specific time that was of particular release quality or what have you. And that's a common way to have an unchanging reference to the state of time in a repo.
Right. So the upshot of all of this is that there's a really basic tool called Git. which is spelled GIT, was written by Linus Torvalds, but it was based on other version control systems that existed previously. And what GitHub has done is it has used that tool and integrated it with a website as a publishing platform and integrated that with a task management system. And by putting the three things together, a task management system, a website where you can publish things, and a version control system, they've made an extraordinarily powerful tool, which is free to use as long as you're making a public repository, not one that is private to yourself.
I think the other thing to mention is that Git really works best with text documents. So it doesn't really work well with PDFs or images or CAD files that aren't in text format. But if you're using like G code, or if you're using like SVG, or if you're using like Markdown, or if you're using like a lot of text editors or something that's text heavy, or something that's human readable, it's very, very, very powerful for documenting complex changes between computer generated documents that may require a lot of time to kind of sift through when the program or somebody makes a small change, and to collaborate on complex, large documents that would be difficult to manage otherwise.
That's right. Ashley, I appreciate you being here. Do you have any questions? Okay. Well, there's more that could be said about it. Of course, I've been using Git for a long time, and I'm not an expert. I have to look things up in the user manual all the time. But GitHub and version management are something that a lot of people would benefit from using. And for the management of volunteer teams where people rarely are in the same room, it's absolutely essential. I'm not sure public invention could really do the work it does of forming volunteer teams to undertake complex tasks without something like GitHub. There is a competitor called GitLab. It's very, very similar in the features that it produces. Okay.
So we had one question in the comments or in the chat. I'm not sure which. There's two MCs in the chat. I'm not sure which MC this is, but their question was, what's your top tips for maintaining volunteer engagement within GitHub projects?
Use issue management, assign issues to people, and have them close the issue and have them make comments on the issue as they make progress.
So the last question is by Miriam. She was asking, what's your top tip for maintaining volunteer engagement within GitHub projects?
Well, I thought that was the one I was just answering. Maybe I misread the question. So the using issues is really critical because it makes visible to other team members what a person is working on, right? If for example, if Joe were on my team, he and I probably wouldn't need to use issues if there were no one else on the team. I could just say, Joe, you do that and I'll do this, and we'd probably be okay. But if we had 5 people on the team, you want everyone to be able to see what everybody else is doing, and you can't create a sense of camaraderie without communication. And GitHub issue management allows everybody to see that the whole team is somehow making progress on things, even though everyone is doing independent work, which is not related to what other people are doing.
Robert, I guess I make a question earlier about the recognized volunteer contributions, and Megan and Lawrence already helped me to answer that. But I just noticed in repo that there is a section called milestones. So I was wondering if like you use that when you collaborate with the volunteers, and if you create like a momentum of like that progress and it's celebrated.
So I'm not sure I understood all of the question. So in the first place, you can see all of the commits. Okay. So at one level, everyone gets credit for what they did in a very dry kind of way, right? We can see that Robert L. Reed made these things, that Daniil did this, that Allison Gilpatrick did that, that Divya made this change. All of that is recorded. Okay. But from a social point of view, how do you give credit to people? Well, people automatically are stuck in this contributor thing. You don't have to do anything to do that. Nonetheless,
So
public.
sorry to interrupt. Oh, sorry to interject. That contribution is going to be shown on the dashboard of the person, like the participation that they have when they create the profile, or not?
Well, not here.
There is a view that you can look at a single person. If Robert, if you click on yourself or something, you can show sort of the activity across time.
So that
There's a view that sort of shows how many commits in what projects a given person is, what their activity is.
Okay, so like Melanie has used the feature of GitHub to build herself a portfolio and to say hello to people and show some projects that she's working on.
that like the contribution in the last year. Oh, okay.
This right here is what I was talking about.
She's made 863 contributions.
Okay.
Most of them have been in terms of code commits. She was more active between December and February than she has been recently.
So that's also like a good way to track the contributions and like the performance and like how active are they collaborating in the platform.
Yes. Yeah, of course, when you're on a team, you know who's doing stuff, so you don't really need to do it that way. But for example, when I evaluate a volunteer, if they have a GitHub thing, I quite often go and look at how many commits they've made. Right, just to see how active they've been recently. Okay, let's see. So Harry Pearson has been very active in the last week, for example. Did that answer your question?
Sort of, but for instance, if I go back to the project that you create for the CIS Auto Shop, so it's easy for me to track the labels that they were created, the project, and then there is a section on, it's like a tag close where you create the project that is like milestone. I'm not quite sure what's the purpose of that or how it's.
Let me go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's Z's Auto Shop. Okay.
Yeah.
And here are the issues. Now, what would you like me to do?
In the header on the right, there is milestones.
Yeah. Okay.
What that is related to, or like, what's the importance for?
Okay, so let me give you an example. These are abstract, okay, and you can, let me see how you
within the item. So you associate a milestone. It's kind of like the tags that he added. You can associate a certain issue with a milestone, and then you can say, once we have all of these issues done, then we've reached the milestone.
But there's some way to make a new milestone,
So the
and I can't.
milestone is something similar to what is known as a sprint.
Oh, here it is. Yeah. Okay. So here I can create a new milestone. So, you know, for an auto shop, it might be move location. Okay. And you can even associate a date with it. Okay. So now if I go to here, I can add this to the milestone move location. Okay. And if I might have 30 things that need to be done to move location, it will kind of show what percentage of the 30 have actually been closed or what percentage have been done. So, you know, that's a way, if you were writing a novel and you had 30 chapters, you could, you know, see how much progress you were making if you created one issue for each chapter.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And if you click on the milestone itself, it will show you what issues are listed that need to be done for that milestone. Right. And you'll notice I did all of this today. It costs nothing. It's super easy. I can go delete this repo, but I don't have to because it doesn't cost anything. Right. And
To directly answer your question, Mimi, it's a milestone is very similar to a sprint if you organize it that way. If you say this is my May sprint, and that's the name of the milestone, and you have all the things that you plan to do in May, and you have the deadline in May, then you know it would be a great way to manage sprints.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So that feature can be used like as a project tracking, like a project management tool, assigning sprints. It's great, cool. I mean, I didn't know that. So great for showing. Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I have one. Well, if we compare it to Jira, right, and like sprints and agile tools, does it have like an area where there's an obstacle? That way you can put like a pending task that's held up. Can you categorize that or label that anywhere using a feature in GitHub? I would see that with
Typically,
sprint planning.
you would just add a label that says this is blocked, and you can have connections between issues. That's how I would use it.
Okay. Thank you.
So now I'm going to create a new label.
You are not sharing your screen.
Yeah, I forgot. So now I'm going to create a label. I'm going to say, you know, blocked by other issue. And then when I go here, I can add that label to this issue so that it shows up in this list. And if I look at this milestone, I see move location, and I have some information as to why, you know, what this is. And then I open it and I can add a comment here. I can say Mimi believes this is blocked because of number one. And when you put a number sign in there, it automatically treats it as an issue within the system and will link to it. Let's see. I wonder if I.
And you can also, if you look, there's relationships, so you can assign a relationship between the two.
No, I've never done that before. Interesting. So I can add a parent. I might make issue number one a relationship. That's interesting. Cool. So I hit this button and I've added a comment. And now in not very much time, we've made this issue a lot richer because we've added a label to it, we've added a relationship to another issue, and we've added a comment. Well, yeah, it's a very, very powerful project management tool. Of course, it's not just a project management tool. It's a project management tool and a document versioning tool and a public website all put together. And the combination makes it extremely powerful. Okay, anything else? All right. Well, I'm going to stop recording. Thank you, everybody. I don't know what is going to happen in June. In June in Austin, Texas, we're having a demo day and a fundraiser. If you're a friend from Austin, I invite you to explore coming to those events. Public Invention is a U.S. 501c3 public charity that could use your donations at any time. Thank you very much. We meet in the Inventors Gathering, which is, we put it on YouTube, but it's really meant to be a live experience the third Thursday of every month. Thank you.